The guesthouse. That night they stopped at Kosh-Agach, taking 2 small rooms in a guesthouse above a grocery. The floorboards creaked under their boots as they climbed, the walls lined with old wallpaper, the color of faded mustard. Outside, the air had dropped well below freezing, but not yet the deep stillness of winter. The snow on the roofs was patchy, crusted more with frost than with fresh drifts. From the street below, the faint smell of coal smoke seeped through the walls, mixing with the scent of frying oil. Arseny handled the arrangements without being asked, exchanging quiet words with the landlady, his tone short but polite. A plate of fried dumplings was left on the table, their edges still sizzling faintly in their oil paper. "We'll leave at first light," Arseny said, before excusing himself to check the van. When he was gone, Marja unwrapped the sample just enough to press her fingers to the outer cloth. The warmth pulsed faintly against her hand, steady as a heartbeat. "Still warm," she said, her voice a whisper, more to herself than the others. Oni stood at the window. Frost feathered the glass in delicate fractal patterns, and beyond it the van sat under a thin crust of ice, its silhouette blurred by the faint haze of truck exhaust drifting along the road. In the quiet between passing engines, he thought he could still hear the water from the cave, or maybe only a memory echoing in his head. "We keep it sealed," Oni said, his reflection pale in the glass. Anton first, then the questions. Batu leaned against the wall, arms folded loosely, his broad shoulders casting long shadows in the lamplight. "When we get to Ulan-Ude, I will carry it into the lab. You two can unload the bags." Marja smirked, tugging the wrap tight around the bundle. "We'll put that on your resume." "Please," Batu said, with mock gravity, straightening to his full height. "Make it sound heroic." Outside, snow began to fall again. Not a storm, but a fine drift of dry flakes, whispering against the glass. The sound mingled with the soft creak of floorboards, the settling of the old guest house, and the steady warmth of the stone hidden in its wrappings. Into the lab. Ulan-Ude was a steel gray under a shawl of low clouds when Arseny Lebedev rolled the UAZ through the gates of JMRAAE's facility. Puddles of half-melted snow slushed beneath the tires, sprang against the fenders before freezing again in the thin rime. The compound's concrete blockhouses hunched like old teeth, their annex windows reflecting the flat sky. A cold fence crowned with wire cut the wind better than it deterred anyone determined. 2 days late, but in one piece, Arseny said, easing the van to a stop. Mostly. Oni didn't smile. Mostly counts. His tone was flat, but his eyes lingered on the fence, the kind that kept things in as much as out. Inside, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and wet wool from their coats. A security desk, signatures, a lockbox. Batu set the bundled shards on the counter and didn't take his hand off it until the duty tech slid over a numbered evidence bag and a coil of tamper tape. The tech's gloved fingers moved carefully, as though afraid of touching more than the paper. "Chain of custody," the tech said. His voice echoed against the tile walls. "You'll walk it all the way into the lab." They did. Past the museum rooms, with their case-lit reindeer stones, through a corridor where ventilation fans hummed with a low metallic drone, into a suite marked Analytical Chemistry. The hall smelt faintly of hot computers, the bite of machines running just enough to singe dust. The last door opened into a bright, orderly space where a man in a navy sweater was already pulling on nitrile gloves. His short hair stood unevenly, as if he'd raked his hands through it a dozen times that morning to try to hide the bald spot. Anton Belyakov was in his late 30s, narrow-shouldered, and pale from years under fluorescent lights. His gray eyes carried the focus of a man who trusted data more than people. He was repulsed by Ulan-Ude's field location, mud, cold, and chaos. He was very comfortable around humming instruments and clean benches. His lab coat was tight in the front, the inevitable result of long nights spent bent over readouts with honey mead and layered honey cake instead of regular meals. Yet his hands were steady, precise, almost reverent when they moved across the instruments. "Anton," Oni said. "Finally?" Anton Belyakov nodded once at each of them, then at the bundle. "On the bench, please. And nobody breathes until I say so." His attempt at dryness only half covered the tension in his jaw. He checked their bag seal, photographed it, read the custody log, and only then cut the tape. Oilcloth canvas, oiled paper, muslin. Each layer peeled back with a sound louder than it should have been in the sterile room. At last the shards slid onto a Teflon tray with a faint hollow chime, more glass than stone. The violet glow seemed tired under the fluorescent lamps, red-brown veins twisting like dried blood across its surface. Anton didn't lean in. Instead, he stepped aside to a rolling cart, switched on a handheld survey meter with alpha-beta discrimination, chose the largest shard, and moved it over the specimen at a slow, metronomic pace. The faint tick of the counter filled the room like the heartbeat of something hidden. Background. He brought the pancake probe closer, brow furrowing. Slight elevation, above background, within 2 centimeters. Alpha likely. Maybe soft beta. Gamma channels quiet. Radiation, Oni said. Anton's mouth twitched. Yes, but listen to the adjectives. Slight, soft, quiet. If this were throwing real gamma, you'd have seen my lab techs tackle you in the hall. His attempt at levity landed dry, as if even he didn't believe it. He nodded to an assistant. "Liuba, prepare the HPGE room. We'll park it there on a passive count after surface checks." While Liuba went, he moved to procedure. Wipe tests on the tray and stone. Scintillation swabs read under a shielded counter. A second pass within a thin window probe to confirm alpha near a fresh fracture face. His hands were steady, but the tightness around his mouth betrayed the strain of maintaining composure. "Contamination is not loose," Anton said. "Whatever's decaying is substantially self-shielded. Good for our lungs. Bad for curiosity." He tapped the shard lightly with a Teflon rod. The sound was strange, a dull chime that seemed to come from within, not across the surface. Even Arseny shifted his weight at that. Marja watched the air above it. It's warmer than ambient." Anton frowned. Tugging open a drawer, he produced a calibrated IR thermometer, frowned again, then traded it for a tape-on surface thermistor. He let the read settle. 2.6 degrees above room. His brow furrowed deeper. "Decay heat?" Batu asked, voice careful. Anton shook his head. "Not at this dose rate. The math doesn't close. If gamma's this quiet, and we're mostly looking at short-range alpha that never leaves the lattice, you don't get this many joules out. Not without something coupling to the structure." He caught himself, glanced at Marja, then Oni. "First, we identify what this is, and where it was born." He wheeled over to the old blackboard, writing in broad chalk strokes. The sound squeaked sharply against the stillness. "Rad survey. Alpha up, beta uncertain, gamma down. Mass and density. Powder X-ray diffraction. Microstructure. Scanning electron microscope, energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy. The electron probe microanalysis if needed. Raman, FTIR. ICP, MS. Bulk and trace, iridium, nickel, and cobalt flags. Thermal, isothermal, microcalorimetry, DSC. Magnetic, squid, VSM. O isotopes, delta 18O, noble gas if warranted. HPGE gamma spec, 24-72-hour passive. Batu squinted at the spidery chalk lines. What language is that? Looks like holy bangtang. Mixed stew. Anton allowed the bear a smile. Welcome to science. And then he turned back to the specimen. His eyes betrayed something else. Not just curiosity, but unease. As though the shard had brought more into his lab than data.